It's my favorite time of the year. I like this weekend more than I even love state championship week. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett and Heath here for the Central Texas Football Podcast, brought to you by Ranch Masters, Ranch and Home Realty, right there in Lake Whitney, Texas. All you have to do is give them a call if you have any real estate needs. Or you can also go online to their website at ranchmasters.com. And Kenny, I love this week. I don't know why. Well, partly because, you get Friday football and you'll get more Saturday games than of course, you will normally because of Thanksgiving, even though like Columbus is playing on Thanksgiving this week. But there's just something to me that's more. I guess maybe because the state championship week, that's it. The season's over. As exciting as that week is, that's it for your season. With this one, you got all this pageantry of Thanksgiving football. Tomorrow, all these teams will be doing, traditional moms cook the breakfast and things like that while they practice. They make a big deal of it. And then you still got 3 more weeks of football.
Yeah. Well, and I think any these programs, they all have goals, and hey, our goal is to win week 1 or win the championship. My goal is, I would think, is hey, let's be practicing on Thanksgiving Day, and that means you've had, your 13 games in the season. You made the 3rd round, so I'm with you. This is one of my favorite, my favorite week. Also, next week's going to be fun too, but I like this weekend.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to work our way from 4A down. And we'll start with Stephenville versus Canyon Randall. This game is Friday, 7 p.m. in Snyder. Stephenville last week handled Hereford 35-7. Congratulations to Hereford for a really, really good season as they're continuing on the uptick, and I think they're going to have big things next year. Might be one of the favorites in the region. The winner of this game will play Lampasas and West Plains. Look, Randall's had a really good year, and I think they've actually maybe. I don't want to say they outdid themselves, but they lost a lot from last year, and they were in kind of a rebuild mode. And I think this is a really good sign for them that they were able to make it to the 3rd round of the playoffs, but they're just not, in my opinion, anywhere on the same level as Stephenville.
Yeah, I agree. Man, last week Stephenville looked pretty good, beating Hereford 35-7. Ryan Gentry, or the Tech commit Gentry, I think he had a record-breaking game with the most catches and most yards for a receiver in a game at Stephenville, which says a lot. Have come through there. So, yeah, I'm with you. Friday, 7 o'clock in Snyder. Yeah, give me Stephenville.
And by the way, it wasn't Canyon Randall that was in the rebuild. I'm sorry, that's West Plains that's in a rebuild. The winner of this one might play that one. Randall had 19 starters, but I just wanted to clarify my mistake there. But still, it's not going to matter. Here's one, though, I think it's going to be really, really close. And I really, really wanted to go to, but we ended up picking a couple of other great ones. One of them we'll be talking about here in a minute. Alvarado versus Sulphur Springs. Alvarado last week won in one of the best games in a week that was crazy, with great games and great finishes and upsets. Round 2 is always like that for the playoffs here in Texas. But Alvarado beat Panther Creek, walk-off field goal in overtime, 44-41. Sulphur Springs out-punched Springtown in I think, a very good game for Sulphur Springs. In fact, I had picked Springtown, and they really were the first team this year that kind of pushed Springtown's defense around. Even in their one loss on the year before this game, Springtown had only given up 20 points in that game. Very impressive game for Sulphur Springs. I think this is going to be a 1-possession game, maybe 1 point, and I think it's going to be high scoring. Both of these teams can score really, really quick, but I think Alvarado ends up outlasting Sulphur Springs.
Yeah, I agree with you. Man, what a great game last week, 44-41. I tried to watch it on NFHS. It took them a while to finally get the feed going, and what cracked me up is the announcers, and hey, I'm not picking on them, but I don't know who Alvarado is, but Alvarado 44-41. Man, Collier, he's just an all-world quarterback. It's hard to pick against him in this round. Next round, maybe not, but this round, I'm going to go with Alvarado.
Alvarado is the cousin of the old Eldorado Cadillac. Don't you remember? It was the Eldorado and the Alvarado. I was laughing at that too. Look, Dallas folks, we know y'all don't go too far outside of DFW. I get it. I've lived here long enough now that I understand that. But A, Alvarado's in the DFW area, and B, just go to YouTube and type in how to pronounce Alvarado. And I'm saying that as somebody that's absolutely terrible at names and stuff that I've never heard. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on.
ask somebody that's around you, because I think 99 out of 100 people would say, yeah, it's Alvarado.
Yeah, and you know what? You're exactly right. I will give myself credit. Like when I don't say a name right, it's usually because I'm using what seems to be the the generic way most people would pronounce it, and it'll be a town like that has an off name like Cooper. People don't understand that it's not Cooper, it's Cooper. And I know that simply because I went to A&M Commerce and it was right down the road. And so I'm glad I learned that. But yeah, you look at Alvarado. Anyway, we got to get off the graphic. That might be a new segment next year because I have my opinions on that. Here's another. I think this game could be great. I also could see it being a blowout. There's a couple of those like that. Glen Rose versus Graham Friday at Mineral Wells at 5 p.m. Very underrated stadium. Glen Rose won in a thrilling matchup last week, 52-50. A last second score I think it was interception for Glen Rose. But anyway, either way, Glen Rose won. But man, dude, Graham's on a different level right now. They're not quite at the 4A Division I Salina level for me, but they're not far off.
Well, you look at what he did to Brock, and I thought Brock was going to be the region favorite. Then they go to Graham, and it just Graham just dominated them. Glen Rose had a great year. That last week, that 52-50 game against Seminole, I watched it. We were up deer hunting in Oklahoma, watched it on the TV out there. Great game, kind of was swapping through all of them. But yeah, I just think their season probably comes to an end this Friday. And man, at 5 o'clock in Mineral Wells, that's going to be a pretty good doubleheader they're going to have in Mineral Wells Friday with the game we're going to talk about here in just a bit.
Well, and that's why I love that Friday football after Thanksgiving. You'll get those matchups where you can, if you want to, and you're just a fan of, certain, even whether it be 5A, 4A, 3A, or 2A, some of these stadiums are having, a 4A and a 2A and all that. I'm happy to be going to 2A or a 3A game and a 2A game, and we're actually going across East Texas. But I just want to point out the reason why we're saying this about Graham for people that might not know. Graham has not given up a point that mattered since September 20th. And what I mean by that is they won that game 34-14. They lost the week before. They did lose to Springtown in week 2. They were figuring some things out. But since then, it's been 0-14, 0-0-0-0, 0 against Brock, 3 against Eagle Mountain in a 49-3 win, 0 against Dunbar, and then last week beating Monaghan 63-6. If you take away that 35-21 loss, we would be comparing this defense to the mythical Dangerfield 84 with the numbers, because they're getting into that point where they're literally giving up in an era where every team scores, even bad teams. They're getting to the point where they're giving up like 100 total yards of offense. I mean, and as great as Glen Rose is, I just don't think Glen Rose can be perfect enough offensively, and I don't think they'll be able to stop Graham's offense either. Let's move on to.
Hey, real quick, shout out to Benbrook making it to the third round against Brock.
Oh yeah, and
this week.
I think Brock. Yeah, and I think Brock wins that game. We talked about that last night. I think it's closer than what people think, though. Benbrook's the real deal this year. They just, they're just running up against a better team in the third round. Hopefully, this will be a stepping stone for them going forward, and not just one of those. Hey, remember 10 years ago when they got to the third round? Because some of those teams, that's what happens. La Vega versus Silsbee Friday, 7 p.m. Spring. Silsbee must have won the flip there. This is one of those that sounds good on paper, but I think La Vega's just rolling right now. Silsbee, I think, has done a good job of kind of turning their season around and getting to the third round. But, man, La Vega, they've turned their offense around, and, man, it just feels like they're hitting on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, Bryson Rowland is rolling. Jabari Thornton's rolling. They got a great secondary over there. I know Silsbee throws the ball around a little bit. I think Thornton had a pick 6 last week. So yeah, I think La Vega's rolling, and last week got revenge against West Orange Starch 42-20. So yeah, give me La Vega to keep on rolling, and it's going to set up an interesting matchup next week.
Yeah, Gatesville versus Sealy Friday, 7 p.m. And Brian, that's who the winner of the Vegas Silsbee will play. Unfortunately for Gatesville, I think the season comes to an end. Sealy, with their quarterback healthy, they're just on a different level. And as athletic as Gatesville is, as good as that running game is, I just think Silsbee can outlast them. But I do think this is a close game. So if turnovers become an issue or anything like that, Gatesville has a chance to jump.
Yeah, Gatesville 42-27 against West Columbia last week. Rayshawn Smith, I think that's his name, went over. I'm sorry, I always get it confused. Went over 2,000 yards last week. Big, just reminds me kind of, I think we talked about it earlier, like a runs tall like an Eric Dickerson type running back, a big tall kid, great running back in Central Texas. But yeah, I want to pick Gatesville. I don't know a whole lot about Sealy. I know they've handled up on Robinson earlier in the year. So I'm going to go Gatesville. Let's see what happens.
No problem. And my only issue with Gatesville is if you stop Rayshon Smith, you stop them. In all their losses, they haven't lost in a shootout. They lost when they and this is a Glen Rose team that is not great defensively. They only scored 12 against Glen Rose. They only scored 17 against Burnett. They only scored 14 against La Vega when La Vega's defense was struggling and kind of fishing around. They only scored 10 against Robinson. If they were losing these games, 45-35, okay, but it's just it feels like if you stop Smith, then you're going to have success against them. And Sealy's defense, I don't know if they can stop him, but I think they can slow him down enough. And sometimes you'll get into the playoffs and you'll be like, hey, we'll let him have his yards because we know we can keep him out of the end zone. We'll let him go 20-20 and then make him pass after that. Now, here's a game that me and Grant had a nice, good debate on last night. Jefferson versus Malakoff, Friday, 2 p.m. at Trinity Mother Francis Rose Stadium in Tyler. I will be there at this game. Now, I do want to note, I'm from Marshall. Jefferson is right down the road. My dad graduated Jefferson. My family member coached Jefferson for many, many years and took them to a state championship. So 100%, I might have some maroon glasses on. Yeah. But I also feel, though, that Jefferson is really, really good this year, and they've shown that. And I am not – Grant has this belief that Malakoff is at that point now because they broke through in one state, that they're at that mythical level where, they're just going to figure out a way to win every time. And they have so far. But I don't think that they're quite that good, even though I love what Mike Jones has done at quarterback. But I think their depth is not quite as good. They're not quite as explosive in other positions. And I think Jefferson's speed is going to give them problems. Now, in saying that, I also feel this has a good potential if Malakoff jumps out 21-0, that Jefferson Jefferson can't allow that to happen and still win the game.
Yeah, I can't pick against Malakoff until they get beat, I guess.
Yeah, you and Grant, I totally fine with that, but you and Grant are both like that.
Yeah, and Mike Jones, what he's done, the running backs, I haven't checked their stats, but they've got skill kids, out the wazoo. So, and Jefferson, they're going to be a great 12-0 matchup, both undefeated. Malakoff took care of Maypearl, kind of like we probably thought would happen, 70-7 last week, and Maypearl's just not there yet. But I'm going to take Malakoff on this one.
Yeah, again, I have no problem. And I would say they're probably by most people a 10 to 14 point favorite. Hitchcock versus Franklin, Friday, 7 p.m. in New Caney. Last week, was that Franklin beat Diboll? Was it Diboll?
Yeah, 31-14.
31-14. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Duh, because we even talked about that.
Yeah, and you kind of called that last week. You said, hey, this game's probably going to be closer. The score's going to be closer than what you would think it would be.
Yeah, but just like it's funny, I'll reference just like Jefferson and Malakoff in 2018. That was a 31-21 score, if I remember correctly. I was at that game too, but yet, even though it was a 10-point game, you never felt like Jefferson was in it. That's kind of, I ended up watching a lot of the Diboll one last week. Mm-hmm. You never felt that Franklin was going to lose that game. Like you never felt that Diboll had enough. But they were able to knock heads around a lot. Now in this one, again, this is another one that I don't know. There's something about me this year. I'm just not feeling all the mythical greats. Like, I just don't believe Franklin's going to win because they're Franklin. They have to actually, and I know they've always went out and earned it, folks. Don't get mad, but we're just talking about how certain programs are perceived. Yeah. I know Hitchcock lost Jones the second, I think is his name. I think he changed it from junior to the second last year.
Chubb Jones. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you cut out.
Chubb Jones, isn't that his nickname? Chubb?
Yeah, I think it's Chubb. That's right. Somebody kept. It's funny you say that. Somebody kept tweeting us that last year, and I was like, who? And then I realized it was his mom. But they've not missed a beat since he went out. And I'm not saying that, and I don't even know the backup's name. I'm not saying the backup is better, but I think it's obvious that as great as Jones the second is, this offense is built really, really well. The difference for me this year is Hitchcock's defensive line gets nasty. And that's what you have to do against the Franklin running game. And Jaden Jackson, who, if he was on any other team and they focused on him, he might have 5,000 yards this year. He is that good. But I have Hitchcock winning this game in a middle scoring, I think like a 28-24 type of game. And I just think Hitchcock is better across the lines this year.
Yeah, and but I'm kind of like I was with Malakoff. I like Franklin this one. It's going to set up whoever wins this game next week's going to be a great one too, because I think Columbus is going to beat Yoakum, so that's going to set up either a rematch with Hitchcock or what was it last year that Franklin and Columbus played each other? Did Franklin beat Columbus?
Yeah, because Columbus was, again, the hot team at that time, and then Franklin kind of pushed them around. I don't think they pushed them around. But I will say this, and I said it last night, circle that Columbus-Yoakum game, folks. They played in district, and that game was a lot closer than the score indicated, and Yoakum put 35 on Columbus and at times had their defense on skates. Yoakum is very athletic, so I think Columbus wins, but don't be surprised if that turns into one of those where Columbus needs a little of that magic in that fourth quarter to pull out one.
Well, I did watch the Yoakum-Troy game, and Yoakum looked really good, and Troy kind of like that. Troy, the score was close at times, but Troy just never was in it.
Yeah, it's exactly same comparison we were talking about earlier. Holiday versus Toller, Friday, 12 p.m. Mineral Wells, as we were talking about earlier. Holiday kind of took care of Bells last week, 21. Was that Holiday or Toller that beat Bells?
Toller beat Bells 21-0.
Yeah, Holiday beat. I have my notes flipped on what I was looking at. I took your notes and combined them with my notes, and that's not always the good thing to do when I'm in a hurry, and so I ended up getting all those mixed up. But either way, I like Holiday in this one. The Eagles this year, they had a couple early bumps, got beat by Benbrook by 5, got beat by Jim Ned by 2. Holiday beat Blue Ridge last week. Now that game did give up a lot more points than I was expecting, though the Tigers, Blue Ridge Tigers, who are green, it's funny. They were a really good offense this year. So I'm not surprised that they gave up some points there. I just don't think Toller is deep enough against this Holiday team that I feel more and more like this Holiday team might be able to give Gunter a game next week.
Yeah, I got Toller marked on my page. I think it's going to be a great game. I really don't know who's going to. I think it's a pick. I think Toller's defense has played well here. They've knocked off a 3A TIG team that went 2 rounds deep in the 3A D1 playoffs. Holiday's got a few notches in their belt. They're going to play this one. I would love to. If I wasn't going out of town, I'd be in Mineral Wells to watch this doubleheader. I think it's going to be a great one. I'll stick with Toller in this one, and another, because I've been following him for the last 3 years. Peyton Brown's a senior. They're going to maybe just give him the ball and pull a Holiday into deep waters and play good defense.
Yeah, I think this is a good game. I don't feel like this is a blowout either way. I mean, again, unless turnovers and all that. I just think Holiday at the end of the day is just a little bit better. But I do love that Toller kind of shook some doubters up when they stepped up into this new division with a new coach and are still a region threat. And when you make the third round, you are a valid region threat. And I don't think Toller is going anywhere like a lot of people thought. Lexington versus Poth, Friday, 7 p.m. at Bastrop. We thought about this game, but we had seen both of them enough this year. But, man, this one is going to be an all-out battle. Hell, Poth last week against East Bernard was an all-out battle. Grant went to that game. I watched a little bit of it. Poth was up 13-0 or something like that, or 12-0, and Grant actually left because there was 3 minutes left in the game. And so he goes, that's it. I'm gonna go to Whataburger, and he's looking on his phone, and East Bernard almost completed a crazy comeback, but Poth was able to hold them off. What are your thoughts on this one?
Man, it's just hard in this. I just kind of thought Lexington's the favorite in this region. I know Poth, man, I don't know a whole lot about them, but I know they're historically the last several years they've been really good. I think they played in the state championship game. Was it last year or the year before? I like Case Evans. He's I believe he's a junior now. He's been starting for them for 3 years. I like the way he plays. You can't tell if he just threw a pick six or just threw an 80-yard bomb. He's real cool, calm, collective out there on the field. He's just, real like a general out there, just marching forward and dropping dimes. I like Lexington. They hung a 70 burger on George West last week, 76-0. Give me Lex in this one.
I like both. They went to state 2 years ago. Last year, they got beat in overtime by Tidehaven, who ended up going to state in the region final. Or, I'm sorry, in the state semifinal. Major Luna, their quarterback, he doesn't get a lot of the pub that other quarterbacks get because they don't put up a ton of stats compared to other teams, but he's one of those. I would compare him to like a Mike Jones type, to where if you need him to get 120 yards rushing, he'll get you 120 yards rushing. If you need him just to be safe, make some good safe throws and move the chains, he'll do that as well. Then you'll look up and you're down 2 touchdowns. I think this is one of those heavyweight matchups. I think it's low scoring. I literally think it's like a 13-10, 13-12 type game, but I'll go with both on that one.
Yep, it could happen.
Cairns and Hamilton, Friday, 2 p.m. Weatherford. I've got Hamilton. I know they're not as athletic, but at some point you got to, the 12-0's got to mean something, doesn't it?
Yeah, and man, you look at Cairns or that Music Reynolds. That dude is. I mean, I would think him and probably Colin Horn, the two best players in that region that I've seen and got to watch video. Gunnell's just a stud. I don't know that I would want to play him if I'm Hamilton. Hamilton's undefeated, coming off a 27-14 win at Frankston. I really think this is close to a pick 'em as there is in this. And I know Hamilton's undefeated, and I think Kearns has lost 5 games. They found a different gear in the playoffs. I'm going to go with Hamilton just because they're undefeated. But man, it would not surprise me one bit if Kearns won this one.
Well, let's remind everybody, go to the Wayback Machine to week 2 when Kearns barely lost to Axtell 16-14. And we talked about, look, this is Malakoff's defensive coordinator. He's over here now. He has a ton of talent. They've just got to figure it out. And you said it best. They started figuring it out late in the year. Their losses were all quality losses. Losing to Scurry Rosser, a playoff team, losing to Frankston, a playoff team, losing to Mildred, a playoff team, losing to Axtell, all their losses were competitive and to playoff teams. I'm like you. I think I might have went Hamilton last night. I'm flipping it because I just feel like this is one of those classic, the 7-5 team is actually better. They just have been in a different area of the region, in a different district, and it's been harder. So give me Kearns, and I think it's close, but I could actually see the Bobcats' athleticism giving Hamilton enough of a problem that it becomes like a 2 or 3 touchdown game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think it's gonna be really close. I'll go Hamilton in this one. But man, I'm gonna definitely try to be keeping eyes on this. And I think it's gonna be good.
We also have moving down to Mildred versus Axtell. This game's Friday, 3 p.m. in Robinson. This is a weird one. Man. One team with 1 loss, one team undefeated. Yet I don't really trust either one of the teams. Yet they're playing each other, so somebody has to win.
Let me ask you a question. So they lost Levi Leathers early. Axtell lost Levi Leathers early in the year. Last week, they've lost. They've kind of benched the backup Fetch, and then last week he started and got hurt. And you put Colton Horn in at quarterback, and he just goes off. Is Axtell better with Colton Horn at quarterback, running the Wildcat? He could throw the ball. They got Troy Arlett, Tyson Michelle. They've got skill kids that he could throw the ball to and hand it off to. I wonder if Axtell's better with Colton Horn at quarterback.
I mean, that's one of those things that at this point, do you even want to mess with it with the question? Even if the starter is healthy at this point, I mean, unless we're talking like a Dallas where, Cooper Rush gets a win, but he's doing is so actually less on the field. Everybody else is picking up but then again, you can also say that's part of if everybody else is picking up the slack, maybe, I don't know. I say you stick with the hot hand.
Yeah. And I don't know if Levi's going to be back, they thought he'd be back for the playoffs. I've asked a few people, one certain person left me on red. He's not going to say anything. But, man, Mildred, they're a really good ball club. I got to watch some film on them. Of course, they're undefeated. Their defense is great. They've got a 2-headed monster at running back, and their quarterback can throw it around a little bit. This is going to be a good one. This was actually in Waco. I guess everywhere else didn't want to host a game, so they got Robinson to host this one. I'm going to go with Axtell. And I know I've been homer on just about the Central Texas homer on all these picks, but I think Colton Horn turns them into a different team. I know the one thing that Coach Horn has said the whole year is like, hey, they're thin, they're little, and if Mildred just Axel gets behind 2 scores. They may not be able to make it up.
I'm gonna go with Axel on this one. I don't know. I'm like you. I don't have a feel. I haven't got to really see any Mildred. I saw Axel a couple times in highlights and such, and one of them was at the Italy loss. And go back to again, what would have happened? Where would Italy be in all this if they wouldn't have lost their starting quarterback? But I'll go Axel with this one. All right, Mason versus Marlin, Friday, 7 p.m. Cedar Park. I mean, this is almost Marlin went away for 10 years, but now that they're back, this is blue blood right here, playoffs, man. Mason and Marlin, it's going to be kind of cold Friday, not kind of, it's going to be cold Friday night. I think this is one of those raw games. It's going to be low scoring. Winner might just need to get to 16 points, and I think it's going to be Mason.
Yeah, I think I got Mason too. Roderick Suitors has had a great year, second year starting quarterback. They got the Marlins got the big defensive lineman and Bryson Maxwell still, and I don't know. I guess Mason they like to run the ball quite a bit. Last time I saw them, they were running the ball heavy, and they're going to have some good defensive linemen from Marlin. But I just kind of think Mason's probably just a little bit better this year.
We have a Marlin fan that's always on because I have picked against Marlin for the I think the last. All 3 rounds. I think maybe just last round and then this round. No. He was mad that we said it was going to be a 7-point score. I don't understand people that get mad at that unless you're betting point spreads. But he gets mad because I'm not Marlin enough fan of. And I'm like, dude, if I'm picking against you and you keep winning, stay with me picking against you. You don't want me to all of a sudden flip to your side because that's when bad things happen. But no, I just think Mason's a little bit more physical. Now Marlon's more athletic, and if Marlon can, kind of use that and get some quickness, wins over power plays behind the line of scrimmage, and you put Mason behind the chains, well then, okay, hey, things could happen. But I also think Marlon needs to jump up early. They need to get up 14-0 and force Mason to do things that they're uncomfortable with.
Yeah. Have you ever heard that? Have you seen the YouTube video, We From Marlin?
No. I'll check that out.
Go check that out for you. It's old, but it's
okay. I'll tell you what, if Marlin wins next week, we will play it on the show. we will play
I don't know if they might distance themselves from that song, but it's like 20 years old, I think, but it's funny. It's cool, but yeah.
All right. Mount Enterprise versus Bremond, Friday, 2 p.m. in Crockett. This is one of those people are going to be like, well, who's Mount Enterprise? Well, Mount Enterprise is a team that's 9-3. All 3 of their losses are to teams that are playoff teams. Two of them are still playing. This is a team that also beat Shelbyville, who is still playing in their region. Beat them 36-35 earlier in the year. And of course, we all know who Bremond is. I went back and forth on this one. I kind of like Mount Enterprise in this one.
I'm going to go Bremond, 34-14 against Lovelady last week. Like you said, the winner gets Grapeland or Overton, who upset Mart last week. I like what's his name, Tank Scott. I like the running back at Bremond. The quarterback's the coach's kid. Friday, 2 p.m. in Crockett. Give me Bremond in that one.
I have no problem with that. That might be a little bit of my East Texas coming out with Mount Enterprise, even though they have one of the worst police traps you'll ever see. It's
I don't even know where Mount Enterprise is. I guess I know it's East Texas, but I don't think I've ever been through there.
Yeah, it's kind of in the above Nacogdoches, around Rusk range.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those where you can't quite, yeah, and I guarantee you've been through it because it's right off a highway, but it's one of those where you're rocking and rolling 70 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you hit Mount Enterprise downtown, and there's 4 cops just sitting there in a town of like 200 people. They've got 4 cops, and they're just writing tickets day after day. Not quite as bad as Huntington, but pretty close. And then we'll finish. You wanted to kind of point out and give a little love to Littlefield, so I'll let you do that right now.
Yeah, so Friday, 1 p.m. in Sweetwater, Wall versus Littlefield. Shout out to Coach Bo Bryant and assistant coach Blake Green. And Green, I know the Greens. Well, I know Blake. He was my son's roommate up at Tech. So, they got a big task this weekend against Wall. Littlefield can score some points. They're a tempo offense. Chip Green can sling it. He can run. So, I think their run ends this week against Wall. This will be the first time they made the third round since 2016. And man, I was doing some research. Coach Brian Huseman back when he was coaching there in the early 2000s, that dude Littlefield was good. They were going 3 or 4 rounds quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, they were a Turkey Day. You know, I that was early me doing shows and me learning about them, and I even think maybe I did a couple of their playoff games because back then they would go into the Southeast Texas region quicker, or not quicker, but yeah, I like Wall in this one. Wall, I think special this year. Craig Slaughter, who used to be at Glen Rose, he'd been the defensive coordinator at Wall now for a few years. When Houston guy retired, Slaughter came in and they changed up the offense a little bit. And it was one of those programs, and it's always hard to tell, is the offense gone stale, or do you just need to do, maybe it's just the players. I think we learned the offense, it might have gone stale. They used to kind of run a very safe, controlled wing T slot T. That they didn't do a lot of the crazy stuff that the slot T does, and it worked great. They would play great defense and win games 10-9. The problem is, over the last 10 years, you don't even, like we were talking about earlier, even bad offenses in games will score 14 points. Not every week, but I'm just saying on the average.
Yeah.
And so now they're a little bit more explosive on offense. They can still run the ball when they need to, and I just think they're just a better team. But it's still a great season for Littlefield, and I love to see these type of teams, either whether they first time or they're back, and it feels like Littleville might be taking those steps to be back.
All right, where are you headed this weekend?
We're gonna go Friday. Oh no, Friday we're gonna go. I'm gonna go Jefferson Malakoff, or the whole crew. We're going to Jefferson Malakoff in Tyler at 2 p.m. And then when that game's over, we're gonna sling over to Mount Pleasant and we're gonna watch Honey Grove and Wascom.
Oh, that'd be good.
Oh yeah, that's. Well, I'm very excited. I'm excited for both of those. It's just there's something about, again, I love Friday afternoon football after Thanksgiving, especially when it's actually cold, which is weird because like today up here it's going to be 80 degrees and then tomorrow it gets cold again. But I love jacket weather. And if anybody's at any of those games, if you see a dude wearing a orange Turkey playing football shirt, that's me. You can see it on our sideline to sideline show. I was actually going to wear it today, but just like you, I've got family coming up, and so I'm like literally in my cleaning clothes with a jacket on because I'm all dirty underneath. So as soon as we get done, I'm zipping the jacket off and getting back to work. That's one reason why we went a little bit faster this week, and I do apologize for that. Next week we'll get back at our usual, stretch it out a little bit more. But everybody. Do you have anything else to say before I say anything?
No, man. I'll be headed back up north to do a little deer hunting, and I'll have the Roku fired up at camp and watching all the football I can watch. It's gonna be a good football weekend with the high school, and I think there's supposed to be a pretty big game Saturday evening, college game.
Oh yeah, man! I can't wait to watch Tarleton. Oh, you mean Texas A&M? Yeah, dude, I can't wait for that. I don't care what side. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. And it's been so long and it's so important that this is one of the few times, really the last time I can think of it would be maybe when Alabama beat A&M with Johnny Manziel, or when Texas beat USC, where the whole state of Texas is just happy that most likely, well, for sure. I mean, I guess if A&M comes out and wins 60-0, Texas wouldn't make the playoffs. But by all projections, no matter what happens, Texas makes the playoffs. And so, but A&M, they need to win to at least get to the SEC championship and see where it goes from there. I know a lot of people that are on the fence that are like, I want both. So I kind of want A&M to win this game, and then, both of them make the playoffs. I'm a Texas fan, so I can't quite go that far. But I'm just glad to see it's back. That's all. I'm glad this rivalry is back. I'm glad Texas Arkansas is back. I know a lot of people don't talk about that one, but growing up where I did, man, it's Arkansas Aggie country, and man, Aggies hate Texas on Thanksgiving week, but for the most part, it's a lot of poking fun at each other. Arkansas does not like Texas. There ain't no love there, man. Like I'm just glad I don't have family from Arkansas. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. Everybody, have a great Thanksgiving week. Be safe in your travels. I hope your team wins unless they're playing mine. And until next time, he's Kenny, I'm Terry, and this has been the Central Texas Football Podcast.